Welcome to another show of Inspirate Business, the show that is here to inspire you, to empower you, and to enlighten you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And do we have a very, very interesting, very deep individual I had the honor of meeting around 10 years ago at a leading international speaker conference, the great Les Brown out of the United States, one of the leading icons in the space of motivational speaking. And Veli Ndaba, welcome to the Inspirate Business Show. It is an absolute pleasure to have you on our show.
Thank you so much, Yusuf. Thank you for having me. Such a great honor and pleasure to be here.
Yes, and I'm so excited to spend this next hour with you. You know, we met at the time when I believe it was quite a critical juncture in your life. You had transformed from the corporate, say the traditional work environment into your own realm of business and expressing your potential, your gift to the world. And that has been quite a journey, and I'd like to explore that much further. But what you're known as now, and I love this, is what is termed a neuroengineer.
Yes, that's
Now,
correct.
one may see it as quite a paradox because engineering, by its very nature, is very science-driven,
Yes.
very analytical-driven, and a neuro is all around the brain.
Yes.
So you're the scientist of the brain, I guess, if I may call it that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So when you look at it, my background is in engineering. So when you look at engineering itself, engineering is all about looking at the innermost workings of things, you know. So it looks at the fundamental, principles of whatever it is that you're working on. It looks at the mechanics, of and the deep structure of what makes something work together, as an assembled unit. So when you look at the brain, the brain, it's similar because it's very complex. It's got different parts that are working together. It's got things like called neurons, and you've got things like, different parts of the brain, different lobes. So when you look at the complexity of that, for me, also bringing in my engineering background, that's something that looked very similar because as an engineer and looking at the brain, we're looking at the innermost workings of things because the brain is something that has always been seen as a black box, for the longest time. And people didn't know until a person, had died to say, okay, this is the brain. Oh, this is how it looks like. But at the time, nothing much can actually be learned. So with the advent of technology, like fMRI scans and MRI scans and PET scans and EEGs. Those things have actually allowed us to be able to look at and see exactly how the brain functions in real time, which is something so exciting because when you look at it and then you realize and say, wow, this is what happens, So when you look at the complex nature of the brain, accompanied by engineering itself, it's something marvelous. So that's the reason why I like to understand the deep, or which is the source of things, which is the source of our behavior and the source of our actions and the source of our thoughts. So yeah, neuroengineer is about that.
And what I find amazing is this move away from your formal engineering career, which I guess you were very successful in, and then getting into this whole realm of the science of the brain. Now, what was that tipping point that got you to move, into this work that you're doing right now?
That's a fantastic question. That's a question that I get to be asked, or wherever I go. Here's the thing, Yusuf. Many people become their qualifications. You are not your qualification. We go to school and study normally when we're young, or usually when we're young, and we choose a career and we don't know much about ourselves. we just choose based on money. For an example, when I chose engineering, it's an advice that had been given to me at high school because, I was good at maths and science and doing those things. And then the advice was, no, man, there's a shortage of engineers. But on top of that, engineering pays a lot of money. Engineering comes with prestige. You look good. I mean, if you're an engineer, because not everyone can do that. So you've got to be someone who is a bit brainy or someone who can manage to deal with numbers and, someone who's being analytical. So looking at those things, and I think for me, is something that helped me to always question things. But the move was more informed by my curiosity. There's a statistic that came out or part of the research that when you look at a 4-year-old kid, they ask about around 3,000 questions a day. But by the time they reach middle school, which is like a junior high school, they are asking almost 0 questions. And now why is that? Our schooling system is structured in a way that intelligence is measured based on how good you answer questions, not how good you formulate those questions. It's not about answering questions. So when you ask about people and go to schools and say, when they say someone is intelligent, what does that mean? That person has passed exams with flying colors. They've answered questions based on the curriculum. But it's not about asking questions because our kids are no longer allowed. We are not allowed to ask questions at school because there's no time for answering questions. There's a time to push the curriculum. So many people, therefore, because they've answered those questions and they are deemed clever,
yes.
and then they continue doing something that is not really them. Because if it's no longer memorized, it means that's where the problem is. So the ability to ask questions is very important. That's why when you look at the tagline of Silicon Valley, they say, questions are the new answers. Now, what does that mean? The ability to ask questions determines the quality of the questions that come out. So if you are able to ask better questions, you're going to get better answers. So those are the things I think for me that happened to say I didn't want to be identified or to be defined by the qualification of engineering that I had and even my BSc in management science. I said to myself, there's got to be more. I've always been curious. And to be in touch with yourself, you've got to be able to connect with that curiosity in you, because without any curiosity, there's nothing that will happen to me. So I think for me, what drove me back and what drove me to where I am today was that I got in touch with my curiosity. I've always asked questions. That's why I was always fascinated by philosophy as well, asking existential questions as to what is life? Why are we alive? What's the purpose of living? What is love? When you start asking those existential questions, it becomes deep, and you get to understand that it's not just about one, a question that's going to satisfy that. It requires you to think deep. So it was all about me finding myself, asking myself questions as to, is this really it? I'm sure there's more to life than just this, than engineering, than fixing this, than designing this. So hence, when I kept on asking questions, because there's a saying that says, life is about self-discovery. So to find life, you've got to keep on discovering yourself. And I think for me, that's exactly what happened. I discovered myself because I've always tried different things. I'm always curious. I don't easily get satisfied, with what I do.
That's very powerful when you say life is about self-discovery. Yes. I mean, you're constantly creating yourself.
Yes. And reinventing yourself.
But again, it requires that inquiring mind. I think that's very, very powerful. A message for our viewers is that constant curiosity.
Yeah.
And what they call in, I think, quantum science is the beginner's mind.
Yeah.
So you never know, no matter wherever you are in your trajectory, even if you be regarded as a specialist, you always come each day with the beginner's mind. And it's a new day. You got to learn something new every day.
Yes.
So this last 10 years, I would guess,
yes,
where you've explored this curiosity of the mind.
Yeah.
Before we go to the break, maybe just share with us, how has this journey been for you for this last 10 years? Yeah.
The last 10 years, basically, maybe starting off with my story, as Veli Ndaba. My story, I just like to break it down into 12 like 3 12-year segments, which centered around 1994, for an example.
Okay.
So when you look at it like 12 years before 1994, that's when I was experiencing some challenges in my life. I was born in Soweto, yes, and I grew up trying different things
Vibrant
like a normal person.
society.
Yeah, vibrant society. And but during that period, that first 12 years, I lost my father, and I lost my mother, and I lost my brother. And that was a terrible, a phase of my life. And that situation actually drove me into this, or it plunged me into this mental darkness. I was in this mental dark place where I was trying to find myself. And I was like, I nearly gave up. And one thing that actually kept me going was the love that I received from my family, my extended family. When I thought of where I came from, and that's how I managed somehow to try to find my way back. But I think things started happening in 1994 when when we were just getting into this new dispensation. Nelson Mandela had just been released out of prison, and there was this new hope, around it. There was this era of, coming up with new things. And then somehow there's something that came to me, said, wow, so this may be a new beginning for you as well. And it was like I'm starting to see some light, and there was this hope, the vibrancy around that. And then I started to, developing myself, reading more books, attending seminars, going to some workshops. And I went to study engineering itself. That's when then things started happening, because I was working more on developing myself. And during that period, it was about finding myself and really trying to discover who Veli Ndaba is, outside of what had actually happened, or beyond what had actually happened, my loss and everything. So the first 12 years was about this mental darkness. And the second 12 years after 1994 was about self-discovery, going through self-development, going through that.
Yes, and we've come to the end of this first segment where we have Veli Ndaba, this neuroengineer, and talking about his journey into this curiosity of the mind, this being the source of all our success or failure. And after the break, let's explore further around Veli's journey in terms of, he talks about this excitement, that years of 1994 and beyond. After the break. Welcome back to Inspirate Business, and we have Veli Ndaba on our hot couch, sponsored by Aza Collective in Kramerville. Veli is what is termed a neuroengineer. I just love the term, the science of the brain. And what has come out so strongly for me, just in that little time that you spent, is this curiosity, this constant inquiring mind that you have. As a youngster and a pretty bright person, very intelligent, of course, but, you could have stayed in your comfort zone as an engineer, very successful, probably in Dubai somewhere, doing building a huge building or whatever, part of the Burj Khalifa or one of those type of new skyscrapers. But you are, with this inquiring mind, trying to understand what is the science, what they call the neuroscience, right, of the brain.
Yes.
So we're going to talk a lot about that, and I want to tap into that, all your findings.
Yes.
But before that, you were saying that you had that first 12 years, of course, lost your parents.
Yes.
You lost a sibling as well.
Yes.
And then comes this excitement and the love that you get from your extended family.
Yes.
And it's this dawn of the democracy.
Absolutely.
And the excitement of South Africa with Nelson Mandela. And we are now the pin-up child of the world, right?
Yes.
And that must have brought a lot of excitement to you, yeah.
Definitely. I mean, that's something, because I started to realize that there's hope. There was something that there was something happening, and also I started to feel something in me to say, come on, man, there's something that you can be. And the bars actually made it even, even better. So that was basically about that, the second 12 years. I mean, the second segment of that. And then came now the third segment. After having gone through that, from mental darkness, moving into this place where I had to find myself, fight against all the challenges, because we all go through challenges. Whoever you see walking on the streets, they are dealing with something. But one thing that is happening as a human species, that there's something that we have mastered. We've mastered this thing of pretending, where everyone is just wearing a smile and everything looks good. But we are all grappling with some mental darkness of some sort. So for me, I think having gone through that and having fought that, because it wasn't easy, it took a while for me just to win myself over, because you can win anything else, but until you win yourself over, there's nothing that will actually do so well in your life. You'll never enjoy your life. You've got to understand who you are. That's where now this self-discovery thing comes in. So that basically signified the second phase of my journey, which is the second 12 years, self-discovery and working on myself, trying to figure out who I am. And then that made me realize my story. And now come the second or the third segment, the third 12-year segment that came through after the 1994. So what happened then was for me to craft my story, crafting my story of grappling and dealing with mental darkness, and how to find a way to claw your way back, into this mental light. And so the third one was like me putting a story. That's when I started then, I started writing books. That's when I started meeting Les Brown. That's when I published my first book, You Are Born to Win. Because that book was more about sharing my story and sharing to people whom I know that they are grappling with darkness of any sort. So when you read the book, it's about that. It's about me now sharing my experiences of what I'd gone through. So this is now the third year. Then I started writing my first book, You're Born to Win. Then came my second book, Your Dream is Calling You. Then came my third book, which was Switch On Your Personal Power. Then my fourth book came, which is Set Your Soul on Fire. So those were based around motivation.
You've written
to get
4
people.
books already.
I've written 4 books, yes. I'm working on my
fifth. This is
fifth
in the
book.
last 10 years.
In the last 10 years.
Wow.
So it's not even in the last 10 years, you can say in the last 6 years, that. So that's what happens when you've found your space, you've found yourself, you are connected with your power. Because
what they call the soul purpose, right?
The soul purpose. That's exactly that. So for me, writing books, these books, the first 4 books that I've written are more about connecting, sharing my story, getting people, because I understand the journey of being, plunged into this mental dark place. So for me to help people to go through that, to believe in themselves once again, to trust themselves once again, to bet on themselves, because if you cannot bet on yourself, there's nothing that you can achieve in life.
So if I would ask you this, if you were to summarize.
Yes.
Okay, I know it's not as easy as that.
Yes.
The journey is a very complex journey itself, the soul self-discovery. Having gone through it myself. Yeah. But this from darkness to light.
Yes.
What are some of the key elements that are required to get yourself out from that darkness to light?
The key elements, based on what I actually went through, is that understand that life is going to test you. Mm-hmm. Life is going to kick you. Mm-hmm. It's not if, but when it kicks you, understand that it's part of the journey. Don't take it personal. I think we tend to take it personal and we think that life is being funny with us. It's picking on us. But it's not. It's all about what life is about. If you want something out of life, life is going to test you back in terms of how bad do you really want it. So, like, you'll lose your parents, you'll fail at things, you'll be challenged badly. But first of all, accept that it's part of the deal, it's part of the game. So it's part of the journey. When you get tested, don't take it personal. Number 2, get to surround yourself with people who matter most to you. People that will be able to speak words of wisdom and words of good advice. That no, it's possible, you can do it. Because that is something that's very important. And the third thing is trying to discover yourself more in terms of where is your strength. Because we normally hear even motivational speakers, if you find your passion, you will never work a day in your life. But here's the thing, even romantically, there's a terminology that is used, which is called unrequited love. Now, when you talk about unrequited love, it simply means that you are in love with someone who is not in love with you. So you love someone, but your feeling for that person is not returned. You can buy them flowers and do all the beautiful things, but they don't feel the same for you. So the same thing career-wise. You may choose a career that you don't have natural strengths for. So you love it, but it doesn't love you back. That's why you find people who become mediocre in what they do. You find people who even get promoted to be managers, but they are not so good at what they do in terms of people. They are good technically, some of them, but they cannot be able to work well with people. They cannot reach the highest level, of their potential. So I think for me, it is that one of, first of all, don't take it personal. When life tests you, know that is part of the game. And that's why it is said that, the bigger the test, the sweeter the glory. So that's something. So when you appreciate that, and secondly, understanding that you've got to develop yourself. Life will test you, but the testing is for you to get stronger. And then surround yourself with people that, that appreciate you, people that will challenge you as well to grow. And that's very important.
You say something very powerful in the sense that you said that life is a test.
Yeah.
And from our Islamic scriptures as well, and also example through our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He had one of the most difficult lives. And this was an example for us to live our life, as best we can, adopting a lot of his character and principles. But he had also an orphan, banished by his own people, and had to go to a foreign land where he then created a superpower. But with all of that, it was that being strong mentally, having that connection to our Creator.
Yeah.
And I guess that's also very important, the spiritual element.
Yes.
So how does that fit into this whole neuro science aspect, the aspect of the brain? How does that spirit element also fit in?
It fits in because we understand that everything can work, but there's something that drives everything. So now this is now where the higher source comes in to say this is something that's very important to understand, that you are here for a reason. There's something that drives you. Think of a car that has got everything. That's powerful. You put a Ferrari there, or you put a Bentley there, or whatever car, a Maserati there. But at the end of the day, if it's got no driver, it's meaningless. So you need to have a driver. That's where now the spirit comes in, because we are all spiritually driven. And it's important. It doesn't matter how clever you are. It doesn't matter, how powerful you are. But without that spiritual drive, without that meaning, because that's what it's actually giving you, then it means you are purposeless. Because purpose, and we talk about the spiritual being, that's very important, because we need to accept that we are driven from a higher place. And accepting that, therefore, it's something that must drive you to say, I've been sent here to come and accomplish a certain mission. And are you doing that? That's the question.
Yeah, so we've come almost to the end of this segment, where we having this most enlightened conversation. I must say, Veli, I'm absolutely intrigued by this. You're such a depth of knowledge, and and it comes so strongly because of your inquiring mind. It's such a lesson, such a powerful lesson for all of us, is that knowledge is actually, I think there's even a saying that the most powerful is the one that understands that he knows nothing. That's the most. So every day you know nothing, and you start the day saying, whatever I know nothing of. And that's where you got that inquiring mind and learning and adapting to the environment.
Yes.
There's something that we spoke about, and I'd like to explore this after the break, where you were saying, at the break, you were saying that some of the models that we adopt today are archaic models. And yet we hold on to these models. And this is where we also go wrong. Maybe just touch a little bit on that just before we go to the break.
I think when you talk about those things, you need to understand the source of things. That's where when I talk about always thinking from first principles, it's very important because why? When you understand how something was formulated, if you understand why there were 2 sugars that were put in that dough, why there were 2, maybe why was 1 scoop of margarine, then if the taste is no longer, you want to change the taste at the end, now you know what to adjust. But many people don't want to adjust anything. They just hope that the taste changes. And it doesn't work like that. So when you talk about the old models, they were developed to solve problems at that very time or, during that period. But now things have changed. So we cannot get stuck in the old models. That's why, therefore, Albert Einstein said that doing the same thing the same way and expecting different results, which is insanity. And that's exactly what insanity is. We see it every day.
And what we do is, I think, from customary aspects, is when we continue just following what we believe that to be the way.
Yes.
Nobody questions to say that perhaps if we didn't put 2 teaspoons, maybe or don't use a teaspoon, maybe there's a sachet that you can use.
Absolutely.
Maybe that's a different way of doing it.
Got it. But that only comes when you're questioning things. Why are things the way they are? And could they be different? What were they trying to achieve by doing them that way? And when you've got that kind of mindset, that kind of approach to things and to life, your life will be different because you don't become dogmatic. You don't suffer from dogmatism where you just follow things through, you just do whatever is done, you without really thinking. So that's the key to success.
Yeah, so what I want to do is, after the break, I guess this type of inquiring approach you've adopted into your program.
Yes.
And I'd like to explore a little bit further in terms of this program that you offer. Somebody that wants to actually empower themselves, wants to change their trajectory, which you have.
Yes.
You could have been growing up in Soweto at the time as an orphan with all the challenges. You could have still been in Soweto with all the ills that our society and the world that we live in provides, right?
Yes.
Sadly.
Yes.
But you've broken away. Now, for those watching, let's understand, and I want to delve a little deeper. What is that program that can get you out from the dark into the light immediately after the break? Welcome back to Inspirate Business, the show that's here to inspire you, to empower you, and to enlighten you. And today we are really being inspired, empowered, and enlightened by Veli Ndaba, this neuro-engineer, the science of the brain. And Veli has been sharing with us, for me, very clearly, is this curious mind, this that I don't hold all knowledge. As much as I do, I am constantly this vessel, this empty vessel for wanting to fill up. And that is so powerful. That is a prophetic principle. We see this in our scriptures as well. Talking about how, you're never in that position where you have the authority, because that then puts you into that space of arrogance as well. And then that stops you, the flow of knowledge. So that comes out so strongly, this humility, yet such a source of wisdom. Now, this wisdom, I want us to explore a little further now in terms of how you sharing this in your day-to-day living with, I guess, individuals, corporates, organizations, because the world needs it. And South Africa, in the trajectory where we are, we have the ills of the past, we have this last 28 years where there's a lot of challenges as well. a lot of mistrust and distrust in our leaders. That we talked of that hope in '94, and look. Let's be honest. We are at a juncture where people are. There's a lot of naysayers. Says we failed as a country. What can we do differently? You're getting so many people of our youth that are getting marginalized even further, getting lost. How do you take, which I believe to be such a talent, such a resourceful talent in our country, how do you get people into the light that you talk about, from this darkness into the light? And for me, that would be the key asset for us to really build this real powerful nation, abundant nation. How do you do that?
Thank you very much. And once again, that's a powerful question that you've just asked, Yusuf. Maybe before I start off with that, let me just close off the other section that I spoke about, the one of, for you to move from this place of mental darkness to mental light, you need to understand something that I indicated to say, don't take it personal when life tests you, because it's going to test you. What tends to happen, like for an example, for me, having lost my parents and my sibling, during that period of the first 12 years, what that happened to me, it could have easily armed me with reasons why I couldn't make it in life. Because how many people who have not made it, are not making it in life, they cite the reasons, which are somehow excuses. What can you expect out of my life if I had lost my parents at a young age? What can you expect out of my life with the past that I have? With the pain or the painful past that I had, and things like that. So life is not about what happens to you, but it's about what meaning do you give to what happens to you?
To that event.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So for me, having lost my parents at a young age, it wasn't a question of making excuses or using that as a reason for not making it. But I used that as a reason to make it. Because I said to myself, after I found my light, I said, maybe I'm the one who was supposed to go. But the voice of this evil spirit came to them. It came to my father and said, hey, I want the young man. My father said, no, you cannot have him. You rather have me. And it took him. And the voice came back later, some few years later, it came to my mom. It said, hey, I want your baby. My mom said, no ways, you can't have him. He's my pride and joy. And it took her. And then it came to my eldest brother. It said, hey, I want your young one. Like your young brother. He said, no, you can't. This brother of mine is still going to go out there and impact the world. You rather take me. And then it took him. So you see, this is what we call also, when you talk about in the neuroscience or even the psychology, circles, it's called the reappraisal. Because appraising is when you give meaning to something. But when something cannot be changed, you need to reappraise it. It means you need to give a different meaning to it. So instead of giving a meaning, like this meaning that's going to steal your power, give it a meaning that's going to give you power. So in my instance, when something happens and I look at it and say, wow, what does this thing teach me? What lesson is it bringing into my life? Instead of saying, oh, I'm a victim. Because it's easy to live from this victimhood instead of living from victorhood. There's victimhood and there's victorhood. Anyway, now moving forward to the issue of moving people from mental darkness.
That is very, very powerful what you're saying as well. A lot of people have come out of COVID, they've lost their businesses. People have lost loved ones, right? We go through health challenges. But it's that meaning that you give to it.
Absolutely.
And that comes out so strongly. Like if you can give it a negative meaning, then you play the victim.
Yes.
But if you say, what's the lesson out of that?
Yes.
And then take out of that and then move forward, always with hope.
Absolutely. Because
you then the victor.
Then you're a victor.
Yes.
Because how the brain works, that's the thing now, understanding how the brain works. The brain and our minds actually cannot. The mind cannot differentiate between something positive and negative. Whatever you tell it, it will actually focus on it. So understanding, therefore, how the brain and the mind works, and then will actually help you to deal with that. Because when you train it to always ask positive questions, that's where you end up oozing with positivity. But when you ask it negative questions all the time, why me? Why am I a victim? You are a victim. So it means that you end up thriving in victimhood, which is the problem. Many people are thriving in victimhood. That's why we end up having people taking drugs. People, engaging in things like alcohol and other things.
Yes.
Because why? You see yourself as a victim. You see yourself as not worthy. You see yourself as someone who has failed. Because why? The appraising, the meaning you are given to the event is actually stealing your power instead of giving you the power. So for me, I had to change and work around that mindset. It's not easy, because if it was easy, then everybody will do it.
True.
That's what separates heroes from those who are not heroes.
That's true.
So when you change your mind, the mindset, therefore, is about that. It's not just about something motivational. Oh, it's all in the mindset and whatever.
Yeah.
It's a journey that one has to embark on.
That's just the spark, I guess.
It's just a spark, but it's something that you need to sustain.
Yes.
So now when you focus on its sustenance, then that's where something now starts happening to say it becomes your lifestyle.
Yes.
Now, how do I help individuals, and how do I help organizations and corporate spaces in what I do? I've got a model that I put together. I'm a pioneer of this high performance leadership tool called the Veli Ndaba Neuroengineering Leadership Effect, which is called #VNNLE. The Veli Ndaba Neuroengineering Leadership Effect. So what it does, this is based on the fundamental principles of neuroscience as well as engineering, and with a little bit of motivation, because without motivation, you're nothing. So for me to move from mental darkness to mental light, I needed motivation.
Yeah, so that's the spark.
That's a spark.
Yeah.
Because without a spark, then you'll never move, because it's a transition.
But then you need the sustainability.
You need the sustainability now. Sustainability is through action. So action now, it's something that you take, because that's what happens when you action. What are the benefits of taking action? That's how you build confidence, self-confidence, because there's self-confidence and there's self-esteem. Those are different things. Self-esteem is about the general feeling that you have about yourself. Oh, I'm good enough. Oh, I can make it. Oh, I'm worthy. But it doesn't make you take action. But self-confidence is something that is developed through taking action. When you take action, the more you take action, what it does in the brain, it creates this momentum. It leads to something that is called the domino effect. So in the brain, when you take one small action, it triggers something in your brain. It gives you a jolt of dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter that makes you feel good.
That
So
happy
when you
hormone.
do that, the happy hormone. So when you do a small thing, it injects your brain with that, and you take another action. That's the reason why, therefore, when you set goals, you need to break them down to small little steps. Because when you just take one step, one action, the small one. The brain does not see that, but it sees you ticking the box to say, wow,
you
I've
see
done
that-
this.
you see
and
that-
it gives that.
You see that self-confidence, you see it in sportsmen. I'm thinking of a person like Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yes.
He's got that self-confidence because he's taken the action. He knows he can score the goals. So now he knows he's great because he's taken the action, and that dopamine is there. And then that every time he's in that position, he knows, I want to feel that again. And then he does it.
Absolutely. It motivates, because it can work for you, it can work against you. Because the same thing as well when it comes to things like taking drugs and doing those things. The brain knows that this is what I get. And now it will motivate it to say,
powerful.
I want that thing again. So you don't want it to you don't want it to work for you in a negative way. Yes. So that's why I teach about those things. Therefore, so when I help organizations and leaders and their teams, when you talk about high performing teams, and building a high performance culture and those things, it's all about the brain. So what happens is in this high performance leadership tool called the Veli Ndaba Neuroengineering Leadership Effect, it's got 3 phases. To this model, there are 3 phases. The first one is about the brain, which is about self-awareness. So here I teach about the brain. I just give the high level of how the brain works, like the brain mechanics. The brain is divided into two halves. It's got four lobes. The left hand or the
yes,
left
the creative
hemisphere,
and the
yeah,
analytical.
it controls the right hand side of the body, and the right hemisphere controls the left hand side of the brain, of the body. And I explain such things so that you get to understand. There's a thinking brain, there's an emotional brain, and there's a brain that is called the reptilian brain, for an example, which is just for our survival. Right now,
fear of flight. Yeah.
That's why it's controlled. But right now, as we speak, your heart is beating. You're not controlling it. What controls it? It's that brain. Right now, you are digesting some food that you ate. What controls that? It is that brain. It's not you. And you think of the blood pressure that is so beautifully regulated right now. What regulates that? It is that brain. So I explain those things so that you get to understand.
In the presence of fear, you either flee or you fight.
And then you don't decide that.
Yes,
it happens automatically. But how does that happen? So I explain those things so that people can get to understand, because how do you deal with fear? We all need some fear. But you hear people, because they don't understand these things even motivationally. No, be fearless. There's no way you can be fearless. For you, when you are to be fearless, you'll die. Because it means you won't even see the snake coming at you. So you can't.
So we need fear.
We need fear, because for you to perform, you need to have a little bit of fear of failure. So you need manageable fear. It must be managed. It must not be overwhelming. Same as stress. There's good stress, there's bad stress. But when people talk about stress, no, I want a stress-free life. You'll die without a stress-free life, because you won't have a drive. So stress is good for you. Okay,
so we are getting into some of the details of the model that Veli Ndaba, this neuro engineer, provides. I want to, in the last segment after the break, let's go more detail around it. And for those that want to, be part of this program, how can they get involved with it as well immediately after the break? Welcome back to Inspirate Business. And we have Veli Ndaba, the neuro engineer, who has been sharing with us his program, a journey from darkness into light, and most powerful journey. So many lessons for all of us, and something that is so relevant to South Africa today, the world actually. So many of us are in darkness, and he has a program that can take us from darkness into light. Now, we were talking about that program.
Yes.
You said there's various aspects of it.
Yes.
Let us continue with that as we conclude the show.
Yes. Now, thank you so much once again, Yusuf. So there are 3 phases, and I said the first phase is about the brain, where I teach about the brain mechanics, in terms of like a car. You need to understand what the wheels do. You need to understand when you open the bonnet, what is there. There's a gearbox there. There's a radiator there. There's a motor, and then you get to understand what drives what. You're understanding that interrelationship, that exists there. So same thing as the brain. So that when you understand that, it helps you therefore to link all the things that we're going to talk about. So the first one is the brain mechanics, which is about self-awareness, how the brain works and how the brain evolved to where it is right now. And then the second element or second phase of the program is about empowering how to lead, how to be able to apply that, is the application of that. Because it's one thing to understand about the mechanics of the car, understand the parts, but now how do you use that to advantage? So the second phase now is the application of that.
How do you attain the results now?
Yes, how to attain the results.
Better relationships.
Absolutely.
Financial freedom.
How to deal with fear. How to deal with motivation. Which parts of the brain are related to motivation? How to enhance that? How to manage fear? How to connect better with people? How to give feedback? Why are people so scared when they have to receive feedback? How to deal with that? So all those kinds of things are very important.
Even a simple thing like compliments.
Absolutely, like
people
compliments.
Actually feel awkward when they get a compliment.
Absolutely. Why? Because how we've been socialized. But from the brain perspective, what does that mean? And it's the same thing as why some people have a fixed mindset while others have a growth mindset. Then I explain those things. So which helps corporates quite a lot, because we need to understand that it's not just about bringing in people to come and just speak and you expect things to happen or change. And then the third element to that is about brain enhancement. You cannot expect things like a Beetle, if you think of a car, that has got an 80 kilometers per hour on its speedometer to travel or to drive at 200 kilometers per hour. That cannot happen. So when you talk about peak performance, it means we need to boost and turbocharge the engine. You need to understand
you need a Ferrari
how it works.
now.
You now need a Ferrari. So from the brain perspective, how to boost your brain so that it gives you peak performance. Because people don't understand that what habits can you engage in that will help you do that. So that's something that's very important, and therefore also that is presented in a Veli Ndaba neuroengineering leadership effects triangle. It's a golden triangle where I speak. So I deliver talks. I get invited to deliver keynotes on specific things. So just to create awareness.
And you do this for large corporates,
and events, seminars, and conferences. Yes, and organizations.
So that's the spark. That's the motivation.
That's the spark that I give.
Yes.
And then the second one is workshops. Where I can come and give a one-day workshop on maybe how to lead effectively, how to, to build, a high-performing team. Things like those. How to develop, to improve your emotional intelligence. Things like that.
And we in South Africa need to be actually, as organizations, be operating in that high performance level.
Absolutely.
And I think there's such an opportunity for us.
Yes. And it takes that. And how therefore to set yourself up for that. So that's the second part. So it imparts those skills. And then there's a third one, therefore, which is coaching. Because I do team coaching and I do individual coachings. I teach also, I coach executives and senior managers. And also some junior managers as well, because my approach is that one of the brain. How to change your brain, because it's not all the books that you receive that will help you with that, but it's about understanding yourself better so that it will be able to help you to deal with what is in front of you in a better way, so to speak. So that's something so I speak and I do workshops and then I coach.
And the coaching is important because it keeps you on track.
It's very important.
And keeps you accountable for what you've learned in the coaching program and on the keynote.
And to ensure results. Because companies, they make a mistake that they bring a speaker to come and deliver a talk or to do a workshop, and then at the end they expect change to happen. Behavior change happens at a process level, not at an event level. So when someone comes and speak, it's an event. When someone comes and gives a workshop 2 days or 3 days or a day, it's an event because he will just do it and out. But coaching continues to ensure the implementation and the guidance and that the implementation takes place. And that's when over time, that change happens. Because when I talk about the neuroscience of change, it's very important to understand because the brain understands those things.
Yeah, so you've written 4 books.
Yes.
Which was your first one?
This is the first one, which is You're Born to Win.
Right.
Yes.
You're Born to Win. And then you've got one, Set Your Soul on Fire. And then Your Dream is Calling You.
Yes, and there's a fourth one called Switch On.
Switch On, right. This is all done in the last 6 years.
Absolutely. Wow. And there's a fifth one coming.
What a breath of fresh air in our environment that we live in. And, we need this successes. And, we're grappling as a country with so many challenges. So just some parting words. We've come to the end of the show already. We could go into such more depth. I think one day we should actually have a specific Veli Ndaba show for our viewers as well.
Absolutely.
But what I would like to, just gather from you, just some parting words in terms of, for viewers out there that are maybe grappling with some challenges.
Yes.
And also just in terms of organizations, there's also big issues around competencies. I know organizations struggling with that. We have a country that actually has a lack of certain competencies.
Yes.
And then there's also the diversity issue. So, from your perspective, some parting words. Yeah.
That's very important because, the first thing that you need to do is to win yourself over from self-doubt, from this imposter syndrome. And I think that's very important. And these words just come to mind by Henry David Thoreau, who said that if you confidently advance in the direction of your dreams and you endeavor to live the life which you have imagined, and you will soon meet with a success unexpected in common hours. You'll put some things behind you and you'll pass an invisible boundary. New universal and more liberal laws will begin to establish themselves around and within you, And all the past laws and the old ones will be expanded and be interpreted in your favor. And you will live with with a certificate of higher order of beings. So if you really want something, you need to connect with yourself and identify the thing that will make you unstoppable. Because when you do that, there's nothing that will actually stop you. So it starts with you understanding who you are, and then you'll discover yourself. Don't see happiness as a place or a destination that you always want to get to. But happiness is a state of mind. Happiness is a direction that you take when you feel that, hey, I'm on my way, rather than being in your way. So I think for me, this is something that will help you to start moving and transitioning from a place of mental darkness to mental light, because this is how the mind is transformed. Thank you so much.
Wow, that is so powerful. This transformation from mental darkness to mental light. And there we have it. Thank you so much, Veli Ndaba, sharing your insights with us. I hope you have been enlightened, empowered, and inspired as much as I have. On that note, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.